more breaking news, more detail coming in. Alex, what are you learning?
Yeah, Kate, well, we can report, according to a senior administration official, that among those being released by Russia today are Paul Whelan and Evan Gershkovich. They are being released by Russia. They are going to be on their way home, if not already, then in short order. This is such wonderful news. These are the biggest names of those who are expected to be part of this exchange. It has been such a battle to try to get these two men released from Russian custody. Paul Whelan, arrested first in 2018 and held for the past 6 years, convicted on espionage charges back in 2020. Evan Gershkovich, simply doing his job as an American reporter in Russia, arrested last March, very quickly accused of espionage, and then finally convicted last month in July on those charges and sentenced to 16 years in a penal colony. Now, that sentence last month came really as not as a shock, but certainly a realization that it could be a long journey before getting him home. But at the same time, we knew that the Russians would have to convict him before they could start talking about releasing him in exchange for other Russians. So this is tremendous news from the Biden administration, confirming that Paul Whelan and Evan Gershkovich will be part of this exchange. We are awaiting more details. Others who may be released, not just from the Russian side and the U.S., but also from Germany and other countries as well. Kate.
This is just huge. Plain and simply, that these two men, Evan Gershkovich, just doing his job, detained, his life, and you've no idea what your future and fate is when this happens. Paul Whelan, who has been sitting in this penal colony, trying to get released, his family fighting to get him released since he was first arrested in 2018. The fact that they are now we have confirmed from your great reporting, Alex, that they are part of this exchange and release, and they will be heading home. Just a huge moment.
And it was just last month that when Paul Whelan spoke to our Jenny Hansler, he described what it really felt to be in this situation for so long. To quote him, he said, when you think of 2,000 days, which is around what it was at that point, how long that actually is, how many years, how many months, it's an incredible number. So today, an incredible moment that has been a long time, years coming in some cases. I want to bring in CNN Chief Global Affairs Correspondent Matthew Chance, who's with us now. Now, Matthew, you've been following so many different aspects of this, including previous prisoner exchanges as well. What are you hearing across Europe, but even on the Russian side as well?
Well, the Russians are being tight-lipped, but to your point, yes. I mean, I've been in Russia, for the past several years, watching in horror as people like Paul Whelan were detained, accused of espionage, sentenced to 16 years in prison. The same then happened, of course, to Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter, and countless other sort of Russians or people associated with the West who have been detained for just doing their jobs or for criticizing the Russian authorities. It seems like a deal has been reached that will see a large proportion of, if not all, and it's not all, of those people who have suffered in this crackdown and been detained in this crackdown are going to be set free. Evan Gershkovich, of course, and Paul Whelan, the most high profile among them, but others as well. We're looking at a deal which, I mean, these numbers aren't confirmed yet, but possibly 16 people sort of leaving Russian custody, 8 going back in to Russia, being released by the United States and other countries. Now, I think one of the issues, which is the sort of elephant in the room, is the moral issue, the issue of the fact that the people who are being released by Russia are people like Evan, journalists who are just doing their job. Paul Whelan, wrongly accused of espionage, something that's been denied by him and of course the US authorities. In exchange for those people, we're seeing individuals released from US jails and others who are serious, have committed serious acts, criminal acts. Vadim Krasikov, he's this FSB colonel who was convicted in Germany of murdering someone in broad daylight, a Chechen dissident in a Berlin park. He's going to be going back. There are others who have been accused or even convicted of espionage in various places in the West as well. They'll be sent back. And other individuals, Russian citizens who are serving sentences for cyber crimes. One individual, believed to be part of this mix, although that name has not been confirmed yet, who is linked with, a multi-million-dollar, kind of financial fraud involving, kind of Bitcoin and stuff like that. And so we're not talking about a trade of like for like. We're not talking about pro-democracy activists. Well, we are talking about pro-democracy activists, basically, and journalists in exchange for, kind of serious criminals.
And that, of course, was a major dynamic when in the Brittany Griner prison release with Victor Bout and a Russian arms dealer, and of course questions over the ethics of having someone like that out on the street in exchange for Brittany Griner. So we'll continue to monitor to see what details and people are actually involved in this particular exchange.
So many
as well.
details to learn. The huge question lingering over this. Why now? Why and why now? But much more to come. Just the breaking news, as you see in the bottom of your screen first. Americans Paul Whelan and Evan Gershkovich are part of this, what is being described as a large-scale prisoner exchange and release coming from Russia, Germany involved. We believe Germany, Russia, United States, and possibly more countries involved. We saw Kayla Tausche at the White House standing by for us on your screen there. Let's get over to Kayla. Kayla, this is a huge moment for the country and for the White House and this administration. What are you hearing from there?
Well, Kate, you were just mentioning the December 22 exchange of Brittany Griner for the Soviet arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death. It was in the immediate aftermath of that exchange that the Biden administration came under immense scrutiny from the family of Paul Whelan, who in at least one iteration of the proposal had been included by the United States. They had sought his release alongside Griner's, but as we know, he was not included in that. President Biden took multiple meetings with the Whelan family, in many cases at their request, and then the detention of Evan Gershkovich a few months after that shortly followed. The president began pounding the table. A drumbeat of negotiations ramped up yet again in the wake of that as the administration sought to secure the release of both men. But when there were proposals that were put forward by the Biden administration for several months, they were met with radio silence from the Russians, according to sources that CNN spoke to at the time. But President Biden in recent months has made it very clear that the release of those Americans wrongfully detained overseas remains a high priority, perhaps his top priority, especially now as he cements his legacy as a one-term president. He put out a statement after the July 19th sentencing of Gershkovich to 16 years in prison after that very truncated 3-day trial that Gershkovich went through in Russia, as Kylie just noted, saying again that journalism is not a crime and that his administration will do everything possible to bring him and others held overseas home. And yesterday, speaking from the podium in the White House briefing room, NSC spokesman John Kirby received a few questions from reporters about whether a multi-country prisoner swap was potentially in the offing, whether that would be something that we could see in short order. And Kirby said at the time, just yesterday, that all he could say was that the administration continues that work diligently, which has happened behind the scenes for the better part of 2 years concerning those particular individuals, and that they hope to be able to deliver them as soon as possible.